we just spoke about Ibou Konate. Let's move on. Let's talk about his contract, Paul. So the reports coming out of France in the last couple of days. This is L'Equipe. Now to get Football France news, lads, translates it kindly for us because my French is not great. They say that Liverpool offered Ibou Konate another contract 2 weeks ago. Liverpool remain confident that they can get a deal reached. My initial thought, and I put this on Twitter, was I wonder if Real Madrid saw him play the last 2 games and I decided this isn't for me. But L'Equipe are saying Liverpool remain confident, and again, we don't know where that with these things, Paul, but I always remember the tone of maybe stuff that maybe does come out the clubs or through other channels or whatever. Or last year, I remember Liverpool kept saying they're confident they'll get Salah to sign, they're confident they'll get Van Dijk to sign, and the messaging around Alexander-Arnold was always, well, they haven't given up hope. They're going to wait and see. It was never there was never the word confident. We think he's going to sign. So therefore, should we read anything into this Konate stuff if these reports from France are true that Liverpool think there is a chance? Because a lot of supporters, and I'd probably include myself in this one, and I say a lot, the people who interact with us here at Redmen tended to feel like this was just Konate getting to Madrid and we were going through another Alexander-Arnold situation. But does this report change anything in that regard?
Possibly. You know, you look at where it's come from. L'Equipe, who are obviously very respected in France, you know, real authority on French football news, could quite easily have been a sort of private conversation with Konate's French representatives over this one and sort of establish where they are up to. So yeah, I mean, it sounds positive, doesn't it? And what I would say is Liverpool obviously almost a bit of a hard and fast rule that they don't speak privately off the record, whatever you want to call it, about the contract situations. But you're right, it's positive noises, and there were similarly positive noises last year for Van Dijk and Salah. Less so about Trent. It was around this time last year that he spoke in the mix zone after the Bournemouth game. Was it Bournemouth? And he basically said, I'm a Liverpool player for this year, and that's what I can say at the moment. And then I think alarm bells were ringing from that. Konate hasn't spoken about his situation since May. So
he hasn't been put up for any press conference, has he? Really? Yeah. Maybe on the naughty step a little bit.
Well, he did that press conference for the Lille game, didn't he? In January, and he, it was a riotous performance. And I think after that, the club probably thought, can't put him up. He's giving too much away, trade secrets. So yeah, I mean, it's a positive report. It's probably the news that supporters would prefer to hear, I guess. So let's wait and see. There was a report out of Spain a couple of weeks back that he'd rejected 2 contract offers, and you may be putting 2 and 2 together there that's perhaps coming from the Real Madrid end, who are being kept informed, I'm sure. But this one, particularly the publisher, L'Equipe, I would say this is at least some form of good news on Konate's contract front. Yeah,
and their report, by the way, for its worth, says that the offer's been made on more than one occasion. This is just the latest in talk, so maybe it does correlate a little bit. The interesting thing with Konate is at this moment in time, Paul, it is the form. Like I think it's fair to say he wasn't having the best season he's had, and sometimes it's easy to put 2 and 2 together. And I know, again, when we're doing maybe live stuff for the games or something, a lot of the comments on Ibou are his head's in Madrid, he's not fully focused.
It's
things
an
like
easy
that.
one to say,
and it always is, and it's never not going to be a thing until he's made his mind up one way or the other.
Yeah.
It very much happened with Alexander-Arnold. I remember those Real Madrid reports coming out, and then he put in an absolute stinker against Man United.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to correlate the two. Where are we at with Ibou in his form? Do you think it is just a little dip in form? Do you think it's got anything to do with his future? You mentioned before maybe a lack of competition. Because it's fair to say that 12 months ago Ibou Konate was performing much better than what we've seen, I'd say, maybe the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, last year was his best season as a Liverpool player, no doubt about it. And that press conference I mentioned at Lille, before the Lille game, he just sort of said, he got asked, do you think you and Van Dijk are the best partnership in Europe? And he said, yeah, I think I do, yeah. Hasn't been that at all so far this season, and it's just a very easy one to say, isn't it? People they've really got the spotlight on your performances when your contract situation is the way it is, and as soon as it takes a slight dip, then it's just so easy to say, he's got that Real Madrid move on his mind. And I suppose it's testament to the performances of all 3 of them last season, particularly Salah and Van Dijk, that they never let it affect them at all. The Manchester United game that you mentioned there with Trent was specifically attributed to the speculation around the future at the time. from people who were close to Trent said that speculation came out just before that game and did him no favours whatsoever, and that is why he was particularly poor on that day. But you don't really know generally how much it affects these players when they go on the pitch. How are they thinking about what happens next summer when they go out on the pitch in September or early October? It just seems a little bit easy to put two and two together there. But there's no doubt that Konate hasn't been anywhere near as good as he was. Certainly at his best last season. He's had a couple of good games. Thought he was really good against Arsenal, but the last couple of days in particular have been poor. I think he's been bullied at times by Mateta at Palace, and Victor Osimhen got the better of him at times as well. So he needs to step up, and no better time than at Chelsea on Saturday.
It'd be interesting because again, let's take this Leaky report at face value for now. They're talking about like the back and forth of the contract, which makes you think maybe there's some type of monetary thing rather than he just wants to go to Real Madrid, which I think with Alexander Arnold he kind of got. I don't think it was ever money with Trent. I think because by all accounts he was offered a more than fair deal and went to Spain.
Well, Liverpool's basically the offer was the final offer. Basically, the writing was on the wall after it got turned down. Was Liverpool making him one of the best paid players in the Premier League, and he's still, his heart was set on Madrid. With by all accounts with Ibou Konate, there's back and forth and it's about money and stuff. It would be interesting. I just wonder where he's at and where his agents are and where his representative, because he's age 26, so this is your last big contest. This is the time where you do cash in, 3 or 4 year deal, and then you do one more in your 30s before you swan off to Saudi Arabia, America or whatever. If you're interested in money, it tends to be how these things can go. I just wonder where Liverpool value Ibou Konate in terms of like the transfer pecking order or their wage structure. Obviously, your big hitters are like the likes of Salah and Van Dijk, obviously Alexander Isak, Florian Wirtz, I'm sure they're all doing very well. Your new signings. After that, you're looking at like maybe your Robertsons and your McAllisters. I wonder where Liverpool see Ibou in this pecking order, and more importantly, where Ibou and his representative see him, because if this is purely financial, I wonder where both sides would like this to be met, or where they'd like him to sit in this ranking, because I struggle to figure out where exactly I'd want him. I don't think, obviously, he can't be Virgil and Salah money and Isak money. That makes no sense. But if I was representing him and I was thinking 26-year-old French international available on a free, by all accounts Real Madrid are sniffing around him, he's got every right to be asking for a fair amount of money. It's just whether Liverpool think he's or want to pay him that money, I suppose. Yeah, no, that's totally fair. It's, he's still on the same contract he signed when he joined, isn't he, from Leipzig? So he's not going to be one of the higher earners in the team, I'd suggest. And Cody Gakpo said something interestingly recently when he signed his new contract. He said it'd been in the works for about a year. And normally you'd think Cody Gakpo, relatively settled, fairly straightforward, well liked by the manager, plays most weeks, is a big important player in the squad, and yet still that contract takes a year to sign. So when there is interest from Real Madrid, when players are into the final year, when you factor in the status in the squad with all this Konate stuff you just mentioned there, the age, the status of the player, the fact that he's plays for his country, there's a lot at play, isn't there, to sort of wade through and get to where you want to be in terms of signing him on a contract that fits in with your wage structure at a level that the player's going to be happy with. So it's not very straightforward when you break it all down like this. So I couldn't really hazard a guess as to what the wage might be now or what he might be asking for, but where does he rank in the squad if it's a sort of pecking order?
Well, he's your first choice centre back.
Yeah.
So therefore he's got every right to say, listen, I think I deserve to be paid what your midfielders are getting paid, the starting fullbacks are getting paid. They're all new. I'm sure they've all come in on relatively decent salaries. I know Konate's performances are getting a little bit up and down recently, but I think if I'm his agent, I'm thinking, I don't think I'm doing a Liverpool deal on the cheap, especially because you're a free agent. You hold a lot of the cards here, I suppose. Yeah,
that's very true. And also as well, don't know how much of a factor this would be, but there is a huge sign-on fee for player and agent if they do move clubs. So, it wouldn't necessarily be moving for the sake of that if Konate went to Real Madrid, but it's also got to be a nice little sweetener as well if Real Madrid are sniffing around. So it's tough. you know, he's never give off the idea that he's unhappy at the club. He's well respected in the group. He's he's sort of developing into a bit of a leader of the group as well. He captained France at times last season. So, you know, maybe he does feel that he is more deserving of, you know, a higher sort of recognition in the squad, both for his wages and his, you know, general standing. I'm not too sure. It's just speculating, but yeah, it looks like it's going to rumble on, this one.
I was going to say, it'd be interesting to see how this one plans out. I've always been of the feeling I thought he was going to leave. I don't know, maybe I'm just easily influenced. I'm starting to think maybe he'll stay. I know you've got no reporting as such, because Liverpool are very steadfast and they don't do this kind of thing, but do you have an inkling, a feeling rather than anything reporting? Because I think last year, I remember you saying, like, you were steadfast, you thought Van Dijk and Salah were going to stay, and you always said from day one you weren't sure about Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah.
That's on his toes. Have you got any inkling about what you think might happen with Ibou?
So when we spoke to him after the Palace game, which was 25th of May, wasn't it? That was actually his birthday, and he was very open and honest, as he tends to be, actually, when you speak to him. But he was saying all the stuff you see on social media is totally fake. You know, we didn't specifically say what he was referring to, but I think it was just the general speculation about what was happening. And he seemed very happy and settled, and there was a moment he had on his own that I think sort of opportunistic club reporters caught on camera, where he was just like, that wasn't staged. I think he was just sitting there and they, you know, quickly get this. I don't know whether you've seen it, but he's just looking out at an empty Anfield with his winner's medal, and just seems like he's very happy. So that would make you suggest that he'd want to carry on. But we do know the cachet that Real Madrid carry, the fact that they will be able to offer similarly, you know, top wages, the signing on fee, the chance to play for the Champions League every single year, all the stuff that Liverpool can. So I'm not too sure on this one. Gut feeling is he leaves, but it would be absolutely no shock at all if he does sign a new contract. And I know that's hedging me bets a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, if you had to say one or the other, I think he might leave.
Yeah, we'll find out in all together in due course. And Liverpool, again, it is a rule, and they just don't talk about contracts. There's no point even asking them, really. You're wasting a question sometimes, aren't you? Especially
you're wasting one for Arne, yeah.
Arne Slot's just there, he's not having that at all. That was a clip from Jounro Insight. To check out the whole show, head to redmenplus.com or click the link in the description.